A prestigious tech conference in San Francisco turned into an unexpected battleground when liberal reporter Sophia Winters thought she could score political points by targeting Elon Musk's teenage son. But when she cruelly mocked the boy's struggles with autism, something changed in the usually composed tech CEO. Within minutes, Musk delivered a response so powerful that the entire room fell silent, and the reporter's career would never be the same. This wasn't just about defending family, it was about standing up to a media culture that had gone too far. The annual Future of Innovation Summit was being held at the prestigious San Francisco Convention Center. For 15 years, this event had brought together the brightest minds in technology, science, and business to discuss groundbreaking ideas that would shape our tomorrow. This year was special. Elon Musk was attending with his 16-year-old son, Xavier, marking their first public appearance together at a major tech event. Xavier had always been a private person, struggling with autism spectrum disorder since childhood. Despite his challenges, he had recently developed an impressive coding project that had caught the attention of several tech companies. Elon had suggested they present it together, a proud father moment that would also help Xavier build confidence in public settings. The convention hall was packed with industry leaders, investors, and media representatives from across the country. Most were there to cover the innovations being presented, but some journalists clearly had different agendas. Sophia Winters sat in the third row, her press badge from the Progressive Voice prominently displayed. At 42, she had built her career on aggressive gotcha journalism, particularly targeting conservative business leaders and public figures. Her articles often mixed political activism with reporting, earning her both devoted followers and harsh critics. "I can't believe Musk brought his kid as a human shield," she whispered to her colleague. "Perfect way to deflect questions about his political donations." Her producer nodded. "Make sure you get him on the record about the tax breaks. Don't let him use the kid as a distraction." As Elon and Xavier were introduced on stage, polite applause filled the room. Xavier looked nervous but determined, adjusting his glasses as he followed his father to the podium. "Thank you for having us today," Elon began. "I'm especially proud to introduce my son, Xavier, who has developed a remarkable adaptive learning algorithm that could help make educational software more accessible for children with learning differences." Xavier stepped forward, his movements slightly rigid from nervousness. "Hello, everyone," he began, his voice quiet but steady. "I started coding this program because I wanted to help kids like me." As he began explaining his project, his initial nervousness started to fade. His eyes lit up when describing the technical aspects of his work. The audience listened attentively, some investors already taking notes. In the middle of his explanation, Sophia Winters raised her hand, interrupting Xavier mid-sentence. "Ms. Winters from the Progressive Voice," she announced loudly without being called on. "I have a question for Mr. Musk." The moderator frowned. "We'll have a Q&A session after the presentation." "It's relevant to what's being discussed," Winters insisted, already standing with her microphone. "Mr. Musk, don't you find it ironic to present a project supposedly helping children with learning differences when your companies have repeatedly cut benefits for employees with disabled dependents? Is bringing your son here just a publicity stunt to distract from your anti-worker policies?" The room fell uncomfortably silent. Xavier froze at the podium, his face flushing with embarrassment and confusion. Elon's expression remained neutral, but those who knew him could see the slight tightening around his eyes, a rare sign of genuine anger from the usually unflappable CEO. "Ms. Winters, we're here to discuss Xavier's project," the moderator intervened firmly. "Your question is inappropriate, and the public deserves to know when billionaires use their children as props," Winters persisted, now recording with her phone. especially when those same billionaires support policies that harm vulnerable families. It's the height of hypocrisy. Xavier stepped back from the microphone, his hands starting to shake, a common response when his autism made social situations overwhelming. He looked to his father, eyes pleading for help. The tension in the conference hall was palpable. What had begun as an inspiring tech presentation had suddenly transformed into an ambush targeting not just a controversial CEO, but also his teenage son. And Elon gently placed his hand on Xavier's shoulder, guiding him to a chair. "Take a moment, it's okay," he whispered before turning back to the podium. But Sophia Winters wasn't finished. Sensing vulnerability, she pressed harder. "Your son seems upset, Mr. Musk. Perhaps he's realizing that his father's politics don't align with helping people like him? Don't you think children with disabilities deserve better than the healthcare cuts you've publicly supported?" A murmur of discomfort spread through the audience. Even journalists who were critical of Musk seemed shocked by Winters' willingness to target a visibly distressed teenager. "Ms. Winters," the moderator intervened more forcefully, "this is completely unacceptable. You're deliberately targeting a minor who is not here to discuss politics. I'm asking legitimate questions about hypocrisy." Winters shot back, her voice rising. "The public has a right to know when billionaires use their children as shields. Maybe if Mr. Musk spent less time on social media promoting his right-wing views and more time understanding his son's needs, he'd make better policy decisions." Xavier covered his ears, a self-soothing technique common among those with sensory processing issues associated with autism. The bright lights, confrontational tone, and growing tension were clearly overwhelming him. Several audience members stood up, including Dr. Eleanor Richards, a respected child psychologist. "This is outrageous and harmful," she called out. "You're deliberately causing distress to a teenager with autism. Stop this immediately." But Winters had come prepared for criticism. "Oh, now suddenly everyone's concerned about children. Where was this concern when Musk was cutting healthcare benefits that help children with disabilities? This isn't about his son, it's about his hypocrisy." The security team started moving toward Winters, but she continued, her voice growing louder as she sensed her time was limited. "Your son clearly struggles with social situations, Mr. Musk. Does it bother you that your political donations support people who want to cut special education programs? Or that you've mocked neurodiversity accommodations on your social media? The public deserves to know." The room had become chaotic. Some attendees were leaving in disgust, others were filming the confrontation, and the event organizers were desperately trying to regain control. Through it all, Elon remained at his son's side, speaking quietly to him, trying to shield him from the commotion. For those close enough to see, it was clear that despite his calm exterior, the tech CEO was struggling to contain his emotions. After ensuring Xavier was okay with an event staff member, Elon finally returned to the podium. The room gradually fell silent in anticipation. Everyone expected an explosive response, perhaps the famous Musk temper that occasionally emerged on social media. Instead, he stood silently for a moment, collecting his thoughts. "I'd like to thank everyone for their patience," he began, his voice controlled but with an underlying intensity that commanded attention. "And I'd like to address Ms. Winters directly." Winters raised her phone higher, clearly expecting, perhaps hoping for, an angry outburst she could use in her article. "Ms. Winters, first let me correct some factual errors in your statements," Musk continued calmly. "My companies have actually expanded health care coverage for employees with dependents who have disabilities. We've implemented workplace flexibility programs specifically designed for parents of children with special needs. You could have verified this with a simple fact check." He paused, letting the information sink in. "But that's not really what this is about, is it?" he continued. This isn't about policy disagreements or corporate practices. It's about the fact that you came here today with the deliberate intention of ambushing not just me, but my teenage son. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. You see, I'm used to criticism. I expect it. I often learn from it. But today, you crossed a line that no parent, liberal, conservative, or anywhere in between, would tolerate. You deliberately targeted a child to score political points. Winters attempted to interject, but Musk continued, his voice growing more passionate without losing its composure. My son has worked incredibly hard to overcome challenges that many of us can barely imagine. His autism makes crowds and public speaking extraordinarily difficult for him. Yet he pushed through that fear today because he genuinely wants to help other kids who struggle like he does. And you chose to exploit that vulnerability for what? A viral moment? A provocative headline? Several audience members began to applaud, but Musk raised his hand for silence. You know, I'm often accused of living in a billionaire bubble, out of touch with ordinary people. But I wonder, Miss Winters, when was the last time you sat up all night with a child who was overwhelmed by sensory overload? When did you last celebrate the small victory of your teenager making eye contact during a conversation? Have you spent years working with therapists, doctors, and educators to help your child navigate a world that often misunderstands them? Winter's expression began to change as some in the audience turned to look at her with visible disapproval. I make no apologies for my political views or business decisions, Musk continued. I'm more than willing to debate those another time, in an appropriate forum. But using my son's disability as a political weapon doesn't make you a brave journalist, Ms. Winters. It makes you exactly what you claim to be fighting against. Someone who dehumanizes vulnerable people for personal gain. Musk paused, looking directly at Winters, whose phone had gradually lowered during his response. I believe there's room for people of all political perspectives to agree on one thing. Children should be off limits. They are not political props. They are not collateral damage in ideological battles. They are human beings deserving of dignity and respect, regardless of who their parents are. If you agree with me that our children deserve better than being used as political pawns, please like and subscribe to see more content that stands up for what's right. We need more voices defending kids from adult conflicts. Winters was now looking uncomfortable, aware that the audience's sympathy had completely shifted. Even some of her media colleagues were distancing themselves from her section of the room. Now, Musk said, his voice softening, I'd like to return to the reason we came here today. My son has created something remarkable, and he deserves the chance to share it without being used as a pawn in adult disagreements. So I'm respectfully asking everyone, regardless of your opinion of me, to give him that opportunity. The tension in the room had transformed. What began as hostility had shifted to something else entirely, a collective sense of shame and then resolve. The audience, seemingly as one body, turned away from Sophia Winters and focused their attention back to the stage. Please continue, Xavier, the moderator said gently. We're all here to listen. Xavier looked hesitantly at his father, who gave him an encouraging nod. With visible effort, the teenager returned to the podium. Thank you, he said quietly. As I was saying, the algorithm adapts to different learning styles. His voice gained strength as he continued, diving back into the technical aspects of his project. The audience listened with renewed attention, many leaning forward to catch every word. Winters remained standing, but now she was alone. Even her producer had moved away slightly, pretending to adjust equipment. Ms. Winters, a security guard approached quietly. The event organizers have asked that you leave the premises. "You can't remove the press," she protested, though with less conviction than before. "Freedom of the press is protected." "Actually, they can," said a woman sitting nearby who turned out to be the event's legal counsel. "This is a private event, and you violated the code of conduct that you agreed to when you received your press credentials. Specifically, the sections about respecting all speakers and prohibiting harassment." As security began escorting her out, Winters attempted one last defense. "The public has a right to know about Musk's hypocrisy. This is just another example of the wealthy silencing criticism." But her words found no support. Even journalists who were often critical of Musk watched in silence as she was led away, many of them shaking their heads in disapproval. Back on stage, Xavier was finishing his presentation to enthusiastic applause. Several investors and education specialists were already lining up for the Q&A session, genuinely interested in his innovative approach to adaptive learning. As Winters reached the exit, a hand touched her shoulder. She turned to find herself face-to-face with Dr. Eleanor Richards, the child psychologist who had spoken up earlier. "You know what the saddest part is?" Dr. Richards said quietly. "You just undermined the very causes you claim to champion." Every parent of a child with special needs watched what you did today and saw their own fears realized, that their child could be publicly humiliated for political purposes. Winters opened her mouth to respond, but for once found herself without words. As someone who has spent 30 years advocating for children with disabilities, Dr. Richards continued, "I can tell you that what you did today set back our cause. You didn't speak truth to power. You bullied a teenager with autism on a day that should have been his triumph." Outside the convention center, Winters checked her phone to find her social media notifications exploding, but not in the way she had hoped. The video of the incident was already circulating widely, but it was Musk's measured, passionate response. That was going viral, not her confrontational questions. Comments were pouring in from across the political spectrum. "I disagree with Musk on almost everything, but he was 100% right to defend his son. Children should be off limits." As a mother of an autistic child, I'm in tears watching this. Thank you, Elon Musk, for standing up for all our kids. I've never seen Musk like this. Politics aside, that was a father protecting his child, and it was powerful. Even her own publication was distancing itself, with her editor sending an urgent text, "Return to office immediately. Board meeting emergency session regarding your actions." Meanwhile, inside the conference hall, something remarkable was happening. Xavier's presentation had concluded to a standing ovation, and several major education companies were expressing interest in developing his software. More importantly, parents of children with learning differences had approached the stage, thanking Xavier for creating something that could help their kids. One mother, with tears in her eyes, told him, "My daughter struggles just like you do, and seeing you up there today gives me so much hope for her future." For the first time that day, Xavier smiled widely, the tension in his shoulders visibly, releasing as he realized his work was truly valued. Elon stood to the side, allowing his son to have this moment. A tech journalist who had often been critical of Musk approached him. "I've covered you for years," the journalist said quietly, "and I've never seen this side of you." Musk shrugged slightly. "It's always been there. There are many things I'm willing to debate or fight about, but my children's dignity isn't one of them." "For what it's worth," the journalist added, "I think most of us in the press corps are embarrassed by what happened today. That's not journalism, it's exploitation." 3 days after the conference, the media landscape was still buzzing with discussions about what many were now calling the Musk moment. Clips of his response had been viewed over 50 million times across various platforms. The Progressive Voice had published a formal apology, announcing that Sophia Winters had been suspended pending an investigation into ethical violations. More significantly, they had pledged to establish new guidelines for reporting on minors and individuals with disabilities. Other media organizations were having similar conversations, with several journalism schools using the incident as a case study in ethics classes. The hashtag #WatchYourKidsAir Off Limits was trending, with parents from all political backgrounds sharing stories about their children being caught in the crossfire of adult conflicts.